How bribery is killing our children and preventing gun control. Yesterday, the House passed tough new gun measures after hours of wrenching testimony, as the headline in the Washington Post suggests. Mike DeBonis writing that the House yesterday, the House of Representatives, well, actually, we should say Democrats in the House of Representatives. There were a tiny handful, 5 Republicans who joined the Democrats, and I'll get to them in just a moment. But the Democrats in the House of Representatives yesterday passed legislation that would crack down on gun trafficking, that would create new safe storage requirements for gun owners, that would ban untraceable ghost guns, and that would ban bump stocks, on top of banning high-capacity ammunition magazines and saying that you must be 21 before you buy a weapon of war. Now, just the fact that you can still buy a weapon of war is, in my opinion, nuts. But, you know, this is what they passed. It passed 223 to 204. Of the 5 Republicans who voted for the bill, Brian Fitzpatrick of Pennsylvania, Anthony Gonzalez of Ohio, Chris Jacobs of New York, Adam Kinzinger of Illinois, and Fred Upton of Michigan, the only one who is looking for re-election is Fitzpatrick. The rest of them have just given up. They're leaving Congress. Whether they're leaving the Republican Party is yet to be seen, but this is what's happening. Only 2 Democrats voted against securing guns, and that was Kurt Schrader here in Oregon, the guy who just got knocked, bumped out on his keister by Jamie McLeod Skinner, and Jared Golden in Maine, who is a kind of Democrat in name only. But that's amazing. Only 2 Democrats broke with the entire party in the House of Representatives. The House passed 2 bills last year, by the way, dealing with federal background checks, one that would expand them to all commercial sites, all commercial sales, including gun shows, and including internet transactions. Right now, you can buy a gun on the internet, you can buy a gun at a gun show, you can buy a gun from somebody from the trunk of their car, and no background check. And another that would extend the time frame for completing that check. And that legislation with those 2 pieces in it, which was passed last year in the House of Representatives by Democrats, is also blocked in the United States Senate by a unified 50-vote Republican filibuster. So instead, and again, this is because these Republicans are being paid off. They have been bribed by the NRA, by the gun companies, and frankly, there's some right-wing billionaires out there who appear to think that chaos in America is a good thing. When people are frightened, when people are afraid to send their kids to school, I mean, there's a whole group of Republican billionaires who don't think we should have public schools, literally. David Koch ran on this platform in 1980 for vice president of the United States. Shut down all the public schools in America. Betsy DeVos is all over this. Let's privatize everything, turn them all into charter schools so somebody can make a buck off public education. And what's a great way to destroy public schools? Well, make sure that, people are terrified to send their kids to school. I mean, I'm hearing these conversations. I've got a 4-year-old grandson, and I'm hearing this conversation from my kids, from their parents. Is like, we're worried about sending kids to school. This is happening all over the country. And I'm telling you, the people who hate public schools, the Betsy DeVos's of the world, have to be loving this. Now, I don't know if they're funding, Republican politicians to not vote for gun legislation, but they're certainly funding Republican politicians to not enhance our schools, to not provide better education. So now, in the wake of all this, the Senate realizes that they have to do something, right? They have to do something. They have no choice. They've got to do something. So John Cornyn, the Republican senator from Texas, seems to be kind of leading this thing. And he's like, no, we're not going to ban weapons of war. No, we're not going to ban high-capacity magazines. No, we're not going to require everybody who buys a gun to get a background check. No, we're not going to pass any red flag laws. What we're going to do is we're going to fund and we're going to harden our schools. Right. We should have only one entrance into a school, don't you know? A school with one entrance is also known as a fire trap. They with the red flag laws, you know, the red flag laws like that you know, where the police can confiscate the gun of somebody who has been, you know, convicted of domestic violence, for example. An awful lot of murders come about as a consequence of this. This legislation, while it mentions red flag laws, actually it's not even legislation yet. It's negotiation right now. This negotiation that Cornyn is participating in doesn't even establish red flag laws nationwide. Instead, it encourages states to pass their own red flag laws. Right. Political bribery, legalized by 5 Republicans on the U.S. Supreme Court, is killing our children. I don't know how else to say it. We've got a bribery problem in America. We also have a media problem in America. Over on Fox News, I mentioned at the beginning of the first hour that I watched a little bit of Fox News this morning and discovered that you know, the conservative freak out, the hysteria that always happens in the months leading up to an election, particularly midterm elections, which is, oh my God, there's a caravan coming. It's coming. They're coming to us. And on Fox News, they were like, oh, yes, and Kamala Harris wants those people, when they cross the border, to be put in your town. You know, the regular freak out. Well, Fox News is refusing to carry the hearings tonight. But back when Republicans controlled the House and the Senate, and this, I guarantee you, this is what you can expect if Republicans seize control of the House or the Senate this fall. Back in the day when Republicans controlled the House and the Senate, or at least the House, and everybody knew that Hillary Clinton was going to be running for president in 2016. In fact, Kevin McCarthy came out and said, hey, you know, we're going to use the Benghazi hearings to destroy Hillary Clinton, and it's working. Fox News carried over 1,100 segments on Benghazi. 1,100 reports on Benghazi. Now, just to remind you what that was, there was a CIA station in Benghazi. It was not a diplomatic residence. It was a CIA station, but it was associated with the State Department. It was kind of fronting as a diplomatic outpost. They had, on multiple occasions, asked Congress for more money to harden this facility. And Republicans in Congress repeatedly voted no. No for money to Benghazi. So as ISIS, I believe it might have been al-Qaeda, as one of these two groups was starting to rise in Libya, which is where Benghazi is located, they attacked this, you know, a mob of people attacked this building and killed 4 Americans. They killed 2 CIA guys who were there as security, and they killed a diplomat and a person working for him, 4 people. At the time, Hillary Clinton was Secretary of State. So the Republicans said it's all her fault. Well, you know, this is after those same Republicans had voted over and over and over again to say no for more money for the State Department to harden its facilities around the world. But they held months of hearings. Hillary Clinton testified for hours on this, among others, to try to make it seem like there was some scandal here. Hillary lied and Americans died was their slogan. And Fox News did 1,100 segments on this non-scandal. By the way, more American diplomats were killed during the Bush administration than during the Obama administration when Benghazi happened. But, you know, Fox News never investigated that. They never even talked about it. Frankly, not even MSNBC talked about it, because MSNBC at least is still trying to be a news network. But Fox is nothing but partisan smear, wall to wall, all day long, pretending to be a news organization. And then when they get sued, they go into court and say, oh, no, we're just opinion. We're not, yes, news is in our name, but, that's just a brand. That's incredible. Matt Gertz, a senior fellow at Media Matters for America, said this marks a new phase of Fox's complicity in the violent right-wing coup attempt, this being that tonight they're not even going to carry the hearings. Instead, you're going to have Sean Hannity, who's going to be outed in the hearings, doing his show, and Tucker Carlson and Laura Ingraham. He says the network stars went all in to support former President Donald Trump's lie that the 2020 election had been stolen. When that incitement triggered the storming of the U.S. Capitol, an attempt to overturn the election results by force and end American democracy, Fox hosts privately begged Trump to stop the assault, then publicly excused it. In the months that followed, they pivoted to defending Trump and his insurrectionists and punishing any Republicans who spoke out against this depravity. By the way, during the Benghazi hearings, just a little coda here, during the Benghazi hearings, when Hillary Clinton finally testified, Fox cut away from her testimony. Because in her testimony, she pointed out that the administration, the Obama administration, had repeatedly asked Republicans in Congress for money to harden Benghazi, number one. And number two, that she had nothing to do with what happened in Benghazi. So they cut away from the hearings when she was testifying, when the truth was coming out. They only followed them when Republicans were doing their little witch hunt routine. How long is this going to last in America? How many more Americans are going to be suckered in by this stuff and embrace this fascist authoritarianism that has seized the Republican Party? What are you seeing on the ground where you live?